Good morning, members. The meeting of the Subcommittee of the Electoral Legislation Miscellaneous Amendments Bill 2014 is now called to order. We've reached the appointed hour with a quorum. We'll invite the government officials into the room. Today's meeting is to handle the things left over last meeting. We have already conducted clause-by-clause study of the bill. We will therefore deal with the responses by the administration to members' common concerns. And then we will go over the proposed CSAs by the administration. And we hope that at tomorrow's House Committee meeting, we will make a verbal report. And then the second reading resumption of the bill will be conducted on the 2nd of July. That's our target. So let's try to finish our work today. That's my proposed arrangement. Good morning, government officials. I'm not going to introduce you one by one. We've met you many times before. With regard to CB2 1769-1314-01, I would like the administration to take us through the paper because this is the administration's response to issues raised by members at meetings held on the 26th May, 31st May, and 3rd of June. So over to you. Ms. Chung. Thank you, Chairman. We now respond to the questions raised by members. This is a follow-up paper, and it has been sent to members. I would like to highlight 3 points. First, at a previous meeting, a member asked whether there can be a mechanism under which, if the voter has been disqualified because of the mistake of the government, can the voter be reinstated? And I'd like to explain to you our registration system. We have 4 ways to maintain the integrity of the voters' register. Number 1, the applicant makes an application or updates certain information. The applicant has to make a declaration that the information is true and accurate. The second element is that there is an inspection arrangement. The REO, in dealing with applications, do have a registration inspection arrangement. That is checking, and also there is additional inspection. And the REO also work with other government departments to confirm certain information. The third element is, or rather, the second is the checking by REO. The third is public inspection. The provisional register and also the omission list put up for public inspection for a certain period of time. If you don't want to go to the 18 districts to check your status, you can call up the hotline of the REO and confirm your status. Starting from September, we will introduce an internet checking arrangement so that members of the public can check their status. The fourth element is a mechanism for making claims and objections. During the inspection period, if you found that your name is not on it, though you should be on it because you are a voter, then you can make a claim. the claim will be considered by an individual independent revising officer, and if that claim is successful, the name will be put back into the register. If the REO has found any errors in the interim, with the approval of the revising officer, a correction can be made. Now, the original arrangement is 2 weeks for claims and objections, but we propose in the bill to extend it to by 10 more days, or rather to 20 days. These arrangements are able to ensure that our voter registration system is accurate and also transparent. If voters want to make any inquiry about their status, the REO will try to assist, depending on the circumstances. If there is a need to update the information or to reinstate the registration, then they can do so within the mechanism I mentioned earlier. We believe the system is able to achieve a suitable balance. If there is any mistake, then a channel should be given to enable the voters to make a correction or to ask for those who seek rectification, and there are suitable checks and balances in this updating and correction of error system. On the other hand, we also need to maintain certainty of the register. In each election, we hope that there is certainty for the voter register. We believe the present mechanism is able to find a suitable balance. As for the handling of these cases by the REO will try to be accurate in its work. And from time to time, we do review the operation of the REO in order to reduce human error as far as possible. That's the first thing. The second item is that at the last meeting, after the 6-month period has expired, how is the complaint being handled as far as the offenses are concerned? We have followed that up with the authorities. And the third question is about the power, the legal basis for the drawing up of boundaries. We mentioned that under the ordinance, the EAC ordinance, Part 4 and 5, such powers are vested in the EAC. Do members have any follow-up? If not, then I am strongly unhappy about the reply. If there is a mistake, but there is no chance of rectification, that's really unacceptable. I've already mentioned that. If the mistake is made by our staff members, say, for example, the address, the input address, or the address input by the staff member is wrong, and if there is no rectification, then voters' right is taken away. Now you say you want to maintain confidence and certainty. That's really vague, and I really can't accept that. If you can't do it now, administratively, if you want to cancel a person's right to vote, according to in the way as the case I've given you, then there must be a review, and you should contact the person. You've made a mistake in the address, and you've taken away the person's right to vote. I find it strongly unacceptable. People should be given the right. It's not their problem. They fill in the correct address. But in the process of inputting, you made a mistake. And you have not found it out. And when it comes to the time of voting, when he appears at the polling station, is found that he has no right to vote. Now this time he picked it up on the ground, and he discovered that the address should be C, but it became C. There might be other cases, and that is really unfair to the voter, and that takes away the right of the voter. And that's not right at all. I would not want to block the bill, but I want to express my dissatisfaction on the Undersecretary. With regard to the voter registration system, we should be very careful in conducting the procedures. That's a must, and we try to improve it as far as possible. And after reviewing such cases, we have to make improvements. Concerning the case mentioned by the chairman, we looked into that. The REO looked into that. And the result of the finding was also given to your staff member. That wasn't the mistake of the REO as far as the case you raised is concerned. But we do deal with each and every case carefully. A voter might have made a mistake in putting down the information, and that is most desirable to have further checking.
Any other questions concerning this paper? If not, then let's move on to the next paper. Or should we be looking at the CSAs? Now we will be looking at the marked up copy. The paper is, well, let us first look at the paper. The number is 1769 bracket 03. Let us first look at Annex A. Annex A is about inclement weather. An extension of electoral deadlines in case of it. Thank you, Chairman. Now, in the paper, there are 7 annexes, and the draft CSAs are contained in such annexes. We do it in the form of a marked-up copy so that it will be easier for members to read. As for Annex A, it is actually in response to the points raised by members at our 3rd meeting. The Assistant Legal Advisor also made some suggestions. So we are now moving relevant CSAs so as to clarify the arrangements. And there are specific provisions that are related to inclement weather. So now we are making it clearer under Annex A. So in Annex A, you can see the amendments that we are going to move. You can see the words that are shaded, those are the new CSAs that we will be moving. So can you take us through this? So on page 1, there's no CSA, right? So how about page 2? Yes, on page 2, we have newly added a new 2A. That's about extension of deadline in case of inclement weather. So under clause 4, we are making a change. This is a general provision, and subsections 2 and 3 are subject to Schedule 2. So you've heard our views and you are making this amendment, right? So you are not using the descriptive words bad weather, but instead you are referring to Schedule 2, and Schedule 2 depicts the scenarios clearly, right? This was agreed by us all at the last meeting. This is the direction, and the government has now agreed to it. Members, do you have any other questions concerning this amendment? If not, are there other CSAs on page 2? 4 is also the same. Page 3, the same. Page 4, no CSA, right? Yes, no CSA. And the other CSA is on page 6. So there's no change on page 5 as well. Page 6, the same. You're making the same change. And then page 7, no CSA. Page 8, 2 places are changed because this are about different elections. That's the different CSAs. One is about DC, the other is about electrical. So let's move on to Annex B. Annex B is about the omissions list and the changing of its name. Now we can see that on page 1, nothing's changed, and on page 2, can you take us through it? Yes, in Annex B, there are some changes, and these are in response to members' views. It's about the Chinese title of the OL. Originally, it's 遭剔除者名單. It may not reflect the nature of the OL, so now we are changing it to 取消登記名單. So in Annex B, we are doing all these changes. All the Chinese title of 遭剔除者名單 are now changed to 取消登記名單. So for all our provisions, if the Chinese title is mentioned, we are now changing it to the new Chinese title. At the last meeting, we thought that the words 遭剔除 were not that appropriate. So now the government is changing the Chinese title to 取消登記名單. So this is Annex B. Because of these amendments, now we are seeing all these changes from page 2, page 3 to page 4 and 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Let me finish 21. Yes, Ms. Emily Lau. Yes, Chairman, I have a question about page 22. That is page 2 of Annex B, bracket 1A, bracket Roman 2. Why is that deleted? When that person makes a response to the request, he would inform the election registration officer that he does not intend to register. This is the amendment in the original bill. Maybe Ms. Lau can take a look at page 3. We are now proposing to add AB. And for those people who voluntarily deregister, their names will be put under the OL. But there is a special scenario. That is, when he responds to an inquiry, he says that he will be deregistering, but then there is a duplication. So now we are adding this. That is, under all scenarios, if he wants to deregister, then his name will be put in the OL. That's on page 3, the upper part. AB. Is it one or two? One or two talking about the same thing. The premise is that now his name is on the register, so he can voluntarily request to remove his name or deregister. Legal advisor, would you help to explain? Yes, Chairman. As Ms. Chung said just now, 91A Roman 2. When an elector responds to the inquiry, he can verbally inform the electoral registration officer that he does not want to register and his name can be removed. And for the newly added A and B on page 3, they are talking about a similar scenario. But the elector has to sign a notice in writing and give it to the relevant officer. Then his name can be put under the OL. This is a similar arrangement. However, the existing way of doing it is that you can inform the officer verbally, but in the future you have to do it in writing. So why do you think the new arrangement is better? Ms. Chung? Maybe I can supplement. Or later, Mr. Lee can also explain about electors making inquiries. Now we are making this amendment. Well, if an elector voluntarily requested to be deregistered, then he can inform us saying that he does not want to be an elector anymore. So we are now adding A and B. We are targeting this scenario. Well, because we do not really need the REO to go inquire him. So it covers several scenarios. That is, when the REO asks him, he can make such a request, or he can make such a request voluntarily. And Mr. Lee can also supplement with regarding making inquiries. The REO, when it handles inquiries, well, normally we would send letters to the electors, and the electors would have to write to us if they want to make any changes, for example, changing the address. So in the course of inquiry, if an elector says that he does not want to be an elector anymore, he should also inform us in writing, and then we will follow up. Some electors now would voluntarily request voter deregistration. It's not during our inquiries. So these names would also be put under the OL so that there will be more transparency. So for 1AB and 2, this includes all these electors. Now for the original Roman 2, because of this, does not have to be included anymore. So our legal advisor had a different interpretation. because he said that is deleting that because they're deleting that is because you can also make a verbal notification. But now we are told that that notification has to be made in writing. Now you are saying that some people are voluntarily requesting voter deregistration. Is it not allowed now? I think you should allow them to do that. You shouldn't only do that during your inquiry. Oh, some people may think that it's too troublesome, so they want to deregister. I heard that over 200,000 names were removed last time, and some people were very angry. So was our legal advisor right? Just now, the legal advisor made a correct point. Well, under the existing law, he has not made clear as to how the notice should be made, so it can be done verbally or in writing. When it comes to actual operation, we need the elector to make it very clear. In the past, we haven't seen many cases like this. So when we explain to the electors, they would be willing to send us a notice in writing. And now we just want to make it clear. That is, even though it's not during our inquiries, or electors can choose to do this. And now we are handling 100 to 200 cases like this every year. But now, according to the law, these electors' names are not put in the OL, so the transparency is not that high. So because of this, we are making this amendment. Even though an elector applies for voter deregistration voluntarily, his name would be put in the OL. So this is to enhance transparency. Eleanor. Chairman, I am not too sure about AB. For these people, they would have to satisfy Roman 1, 2, 3 at the same time, right? AB, bracket I, bracket II, and bracket III, they have to satisfy all these conditions. And then they would be regarded as people in OL. Here they say that their names are now in the final register, and second, they have informed an electoral registration officer that he does not want his name to appear in the register anymore. And then 3 is kind of strange. The ELO thinks that through the ELO's notification, he is informed, the ELO is informed that he does not want his name to appear in the next register. If the ELO has decided not to put his name in the register, then why would this happen? Are you looking at Annex C? We are not at Annex C. We are looking at Annex B. Which page are we talking about? Page 3. Page 3. Right, I'm sorry about that. Just now, Ms. Emily Lang, you asked a question. And that has already been looked at during our clause-by-clause examination. We had a discussion then. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, sorry, I was away for a while. I just want to clarify. Just now, Ms. Lee said that, well, the present way of doing it is not changed yet. So 200 or 300 people's names have been removed, and now they are not put in the OL because it's not required by the law. And you think this is not an ideal situation, and so now there is this change, and I agree to it. Well, but this has been the practice. It's not just under the law, right? It's not an ideal practice, but what other problems are there? So if you do not put it in the OL, then even the elector himself cannot find his name, right?
I think it's not satisfactory because in the election cycle we have a provisional register. When we and the names will appear in the final register. If we want to take away the name of the register, then we put the name in the omission list. So the two added together is a complete list. If one cancels the registration voluntarily, and if it is not in the final register, then the situation is that his name is in the provisional. In the full register, his name is there, and in the omission register, omission list is not there. In the provisional register, his name is not there, so it's not desirable. In the final register, if we are not going to put it in the next final register, then the name should be put in the omission list. That will help to maintain the integrity of the registration. Has there been any problems or arguments? No, not at all. And there has been no complaint. But when we reviewed the system, we found that that's the situation, so it's better to put it in the omission list. The name has been changed. I understand why I've missed the annex. I read the English version. Annex B should correspond with the Cantonese, the Chinese Fujian B. Why there are only 2 pages for the English version Annex B? Why there are only 2 pages? I cannot find it. I cannot find the part asked by Ms. Lau. There is no English version. Oh, is there none? The Annex B deals only the part that is referred to by the Chinese version. So you can only see the amendments in terms of the notes. But for the Chinese, they have to amend the content of the law. I understand that. Yes, I understand that, but I don't understand is that AB should be included in the English version. I think in the original. This is not the shaded part. Therefore, it is not printed in order to save some paper. Okay, I understand that. That has already been dealt with. Okay, thank you. Okay, if you okay with that, then let me now turn to page 22 of the Chinese version, and also 23 of the Chinese version. Page 22, 23 of the Chinese version. If not, then we move on to Annex C regarding handling of requests for voter deregistration. Yes, Ms. Chung. Thank you, Chairman. Annex C, our proposed amendments to address the question raised by the assistant legal advisor. Say if a person voluntarily deregister himself or herself after we have received a written notice, then the REO will send a confirmation, or the ERO will send a confirmation. But if the confirmation so sent is returned, then we put the name into the omission list. In our reply, we say that upon such a situation, the REO will try to liaise with the voter to clarify the question why the person asked to deregister himself voluntarily, and why, when we send a letter to him, the letter has been rejected. Send the letter to the address in our record. It has been returned. We want to make sure, we want to confirm that the voter asked to deregister himself or herself, and we will only put the name on the omission list after we've confirmed such a fact. Therefore, in our provision, proposed provision, we have added 3, Roman 3 under AB. We just want to deal with it without doubt. Now, after we are informed, then we will not immediately delete the registration. We have first, to do this, the ERO will use a registered mail to inform the person concerned that the ERO intends to take away his or her name from the next final register. And then the ERO should be satisfied that the person has been informed. And then under 1AB, we have added Roman 3, spelling out this. In the opinion of the ERO, the person has been informed, and therefore the person's name will be put in the omission list. Miss Lau, my apology because I wasn't present when there was such a discussion. He informed you that he wants to withdraw, so you reply to him. Ask him to confirm, right? You're worried that the notification is not so safe. And if you are not able to find him, then what? Now you send the notice by register mail. Now he may claim that he has not received that notice from you. Can you explain how you what's your practice now and what will be the future practice? I don't quite understand this. Mr. Lee. Chairman, if I may explain the present arrangement. The present arrangement is the same as we proposed. When we received a notice from a voter that he wants to be delisted, then having received the notice, usually it is a written notification. And if it is an oral notification, we ask them to do it in writing. And then we will return a letter. We send a letter to him, explaining to him the arrangement. We will put his name in the coming omission list, and we will delete his name from the next final register. This to make sure that the person knows the consequence. Voter registration is very important. If his registration is deleted, then he cannot vote in the next election. So the ERO has to send the notification by register mails, informing the voter the outcome or the consequence. Now, if the letter is returned, our intention is that we believe that the voter knows the consequence and the procedure, then we will delete the registration. Therefore, under AB Roman 3, we have the amendment. In the opinion of the electoral registration officer, the voter has been informed by means of officer's notification of the officer's intention to omit the person's name and principal resident address, residential address from the next final register. We follow the law, and is it the future or now? That's now being done by them. But they just put it down in the law. In the past, they didn't have that. There is no change. in the procedure. He informed you, and then you sent a notification to him seeking confirmation by registered mail. And if he didn't reply, then you assumed that he might not want to delete his name, so you will not delete his name. If there is loss of contact, then that request will not be handled. So that deletion will not be handled. I've also asked, will you use telephone to contact the person? And if there is a telephone number, then they will contact the person. They try to contact the person to make sure, to confirm with the voter directly before handling that. How many such cases were there? Ms. Lee? On average, 100 or 200 such cases were received. In 2012, there were more cases. There was a large-scale check, and there were 1,800 requests for deletion. And in 2013, about 500, and this year about 200. They voluntarily asked for deletion. And you go through your procedure, they don't reply, and you cannot delete their names. How many of such cases? We now usually it's this. We have not changed the procedure. After we received their notice, then we send a registered mail to them, and we were able to contact those people, those voters. Our proposed procedure is consistent with our present procedure. The only difference is that in the registered mail, we tell them that your name will be put into the omission list. At present, there is no such provision in the law, so we can only tell them that in the next final register, your name will not appear. Ms. Ellen Leung, I understand that Roman 3 is to deal with a discussion that transpired at a meeting of this Bills Committee. But what do you mean by or otherwise? I think or otherwise is the focus. What is expected under or otherwise? Maybe by telephone. Yes, correct, Mr. Chairman. We will first contact the person or the voter by telephone. Now, the voter may have already moved out. And if we have confirmed the new address, then we'll send the mail to the new address. Sometimes people doesn't go to the post office to collect the registered mail, and sometimes the voter may ask for a fax instead of a registered letter.
Chairman, some electors are illiterate, for example, the elderly. So if you post him something, he may not be aware of what it is. And he, of course, will not take the initiative to deregister. So have you seen cases like this? Because, well, that person is illiterate, and even if you send him a letter, he would not reply to you. Have you seen cases like this? Well, this is not just about the registration. Well, sometimes when we send letters to electors, because some of them may not be able to read those letters, so we would leave a telephone number. So, and if they see a telephone number on the letter, they can call us, and then we would explain to them the content of the paper. So you think putting a telephone number on the letter is useful? Well, actually, the letter may be a page long, so sometimes they would call us to ask us to explain to them about the letter. And some of them may think that there is too much information in the letter, but we would explain to them because certain ordinances are involved, so we cannot just summarize those legal requirements. So we are trying our best to make the letter as clear and simple as possible. Yes, that is true. Now, after receiving a letter, if it's full of words and very complicated, of course, people may not be able to understand. But my question is about the illiterate people. So they have never lodged a complaint, right? Because they may find that suddenly their names are removed from the register and they lodge a complaint. Have you received complaints like that? As far as my memory is concerned, I do not recall any case like that. Well, sometimes because of miscommunication, names may have been removed from registers. Well, I do not rule out the possibility of this, but I cannot remember any case like this. And during election years, electors are more aware. And if they have received a letter and they don't really understand it, they would call our hotline. And on the telephone, our staff would help them update their information. I think for those who lodge complaints, they would be more aware of the situation. Well, but for some of the electors, they may not know how to read the letters and they just put the letter aside and their status as a result is removed. So now we are talking about making a request to the register. So this is different. Well, Chairman, what do you mean by too many? So for many people, they do not know how to read and they do not know how to make a complaint. There have been many cases like this. Well, I have come into contact with such cases. Yes, but I want to know the government's statistics. With regard to too many, I don't think I can give it a definition. Well, I have seen cases like this. Yes, an elector may have received a letter. He just brushed it aside. We don't always know the reason. But if he does not follow the statutory procedures and reply to our letter, then according to the law, we will have to put his name in the OL. Well, sometimes maybe it's because the elector is too busy or he's an elderly, he is illiterate, etc. So when we do the VR, and when it's close to the deadline, we would stage a round of publicity. We would remind people to register before the deadline. And we would remind them that letters have been sent to electors and they should pay attention to their mailboxes. So we would repeatedly remind the electors. Okay, let's move on. We have talked about page 2, page 3. Ms. Chung. So it's also about the demarcation of boundaries. Yes, that's about district. That's about geographical constituencies, and then it's about election committee and district councils. So relevant amendments are made. So page 4 is also an FC, and page 5, the same. Any questions? And then page 6, I'm a bit fast, so if you have any questions, please stop me and ask. And page 6. Ms. Chung, anything to add? On page 6 is about rural representative election. Our proposed amendment is the same as the other two ordinances. So page 7 the same. Page 8. Page 9.
第10頁。
Page 10.
好，咁對附件 C 有冇問題？
So any questions, members? And let's move on to Annex D. Ms. Chong? Yes, thank you, Chairman. Annex D. About some amendments, and these are amendments in response to members' questions. They are about the appointment notifications of polling agencies and counting agencies. Well, after members' discussions, we understood that members are very concerned about the arrangements for elections. So originally, we made some proposals concerning the notice of appointment of polling and counting agents, but now we are withdrawing such amendments. We have set out such proposals, and now we are deleting our amendments with regard to polling and counting agents. But we have also made some technical amendments. Now the arrangement is not changed. It will remain, the status quo will be kept, but the technical amendments will continue to be made. And you can see this in Annex D. Now for this notice of appointment or revocation of appointment, how can you inform the relevant officer? Should it be done in person or what? So now we are clarifying the way of notification in Annex D. So the government has accepted the Bills Committee's suggestions. Members are very concerned further chaos will be created, so now they are maintaining the status quo. However, at the same time, there are some technical amendments. So these amendments are still made. It's a bit complicated, and it involves a number of ordinances. So let us look at these amendments page by page. Page 1 is about the way of delivery. Any questions? Page 2. Page 2 is about 8B, 8A and 8B. There are some changes to the amendment. Now, originally, we have to obtain the consent of the Commissioner for Correctional Services, and is about DPS. So, in the original text, we have included the word application. And now, if the notice is given to a notice should be given to the Commissioner of Correctional Services for his consent. So now we are deleting the word application, and we just include the word notice of appointment. The notice of of appointment is given instead of the words application is lodged. So any questions? No? Page 3, Ms. Chong. On page 3, it's the same. For some revocation of notice, we are now setting out the ways of doing it. So before the polling day, there are 4 ways of doing it. You can do it in person, you can fax it, or email, or etc. So on the polling day, you have to do it in person. Ms. Emily Lau, why on the polling day you have to do it in person? Because on the polling day people are very busy. So why can't you convenience them? What do you mean by that day? That's what Ms. Zhang said. Do you understand my question? Can you let her answer the question first? Ms. Chung? Yes, for Ms. Emily Lau's question, The present arrangement is already like this. For a candidate, if he wants to appoint polling agents or counting agents, there are two ways of doing it. That is under the present law. First, 1 week before the polling day, the notice of appointment should be given to the chief electoral officer. If he cannot do it 1 week beforehand, and on the polling day, he or his election agents can deliver the notice to the polling station. This is the present arrangement. And in the bill, we originally made the proposal in order to convenience the candidates. We wanted to do away with this arrangement, that is asking the candidates to do it in person on the polling day. Originally, we suggested that the agent himself can go to the polling station carrying with him a filled out notice. However, when members discussed this issue, members thought that we should be more prudent when it comes to election. If it's just the agents carrying a notice, then they are afraid that some people may forge the documents, etc. So we've heard members' views, and we understand that members are very concerned about electoral arrangements, and we should be very prudent and serious. So that's why we are maintaining the status quo. So why is that? Well, my question is about email. So you cannot send an email, you have to do it in person. Is that right? We are maintaining the status quo. That is, if it's on the polling day, you have to do it in person. So before the polling day, you can do it by hand, you can do it by electronic mail or by fax. 7 days, right? But on the polling day, we cannot use such convenient methods. What's the administration's explanation again? Well, because originally they wanted to make a change. They wanted to cancel the arrangement that the candidate would have to do it in person on the polling day. But some members thought that this was not good enough because it may create chaos. So the government has accepted our views, and now they are reverting to the original arrangement. That is the present practice. Well, actually, I do not agree to this point, but the government is listening to you. Some people are very worried about the new arrangement, so now they are reverting to the old arrangement. So the candidate would have to do it in person. I agree to that, but actually there are several ways of doing it.
How? He has to do it personally at the polling station. Yes, indeed. Now he did it by hand. Okay, he does it by hand, but by email. I mean, he sent email himself. He sends email himself. Are there different views in the Bills Committee? Ms. Chong. In fact, at previous meetings, there was no discussion as to whether the reinstatement of the original plus the reinstatement of original arrangement plus sending the notification by email. In fact, the appointment notification is to be given to the officer in charge of the polling station. So it's more appropriate to do it in person. You send email by himself, by the candidate himself, that's really meaningless. Well, I don't agree with the proposal. I think the proposed amendment by the administration facilitates the candidates, but some members don't think so, and therefore they do not accept it. They don't find it safe. The administration has accepted their view. Legal advisor, do you have anything to advise us? Maybe you can tell us as well, legal advisor. Sorry, I just noticed that in Annex D, page 1. subsection 8, in the case of a multiple candidates list, then notice required for the purposes of this subsection may be given by any candidate on the list. That was crossed out, but the deletion of this wasn't proposed in the original bill. Now, if you cross out this part, then you really don't know who can give the notice. I think the administration has to explain this. Ms. Chung. Thank you, Chairman. Let me explain why we cross out this phrase. We cross out this phrase, and this is also similar to page 2, subsection 12. In the case of multiple candidate list, the notice required for the purpose of this subsection may be given by any candidate on the list. Now, in fact, we have made an improvement. We've clarified the method of tendering the notice. After crossing out the clause, or rather, yes, the clause in subsection 12, under 14A1, by the candidate in person, or in the case of a multiple candidates list, by any candidates on the list in person. We put it in the specific provision for notice of revocation. Therefore, we don't need the clause in subsection 8. Okay. We were on page 3, right? Okay, we now move on to page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Ms. Chung, if you want to add, say anything, please feel free to do so. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12 and 13. Okay. So much for Annex D. Yes, Miss Emily Lau. My question is about the operation. It's not about the bill. I did ask this. In fact, Mr. Lee said something on this. Now, the polling station is rather small. Each candidate, if each candidate has an agent, then that may not be enough space. There may not be enough space. So to accommodate them all together, they may have to go in turns. There will always be somebody watching over. But the polling station is too small, therefore the agents will go in and take turns. Now, if there is no problem, then everything's fine. But there is a problem. If there is any suspicion, then many candidates would like to have their agents present. But if the polling station is too small, then things will be in a mess. So what is your arrangement? Now, you allow the agents to take turn because the polling station is too small. But if the agent has certain suspicion, if the candidate has certain suspicion, then can the candidate or agents be allowed to go in at any time? Can you refuse entrance because the place is too small? Mr. Lee. during a general election, there will be 500 odd polling stations. Sizes vary. For smaller ones, they can only accommodate 2 agents. For bigger ones, some polling stations may allow 4 or 6 agents or 4 or 6 people. Our concern is the order within the polling station. In the election cycle of 2011 and 12, it was seldom for the agents to queue up. Mr. Lee, I think you've already said that. Can you respond to Ms. Lau? Now, when there is a problem, say the polling station can allow 2 agents. If there is a problem, there is a suspicion, then are there any special measures to handle that? I'm about to answer this. As for the taking turn arrangement, it is an administrative arrangement. It's not prescribed in the law. Now, if the polling agents want to get into the polling station to do this monitoring, and if a problem arises, the returning officer or the will exercise his discretion to enable a polling agent to enter a polling station to observe certain things. The returning officer does have the power. But we have not encountered such a problem in which a certain situation occurred and a certain polling agent wanted to get into the polling station to do monitoring, and the entry was refused. But the returning officer does have the power to make the arrangements. Under the law, does the polling agent has the right to observe the polling process? The law has not been so specific on the degree of freedom of the polling agent. The polling agent has the right to go into the polling station to observe the polling process. But the polling officer or the presiding officer has the power to manage the polling station and to decide on who can enter, who cannot. A queuing system, taking turns, is a fair arrangement. If there is a definite need to allow a certain person to get into the polling station to ensure the fairness of the polling process, that flexibility is there. But the flexibility is in the hands of the presiding officer. In fact, the polling station cannot allow so many people. I've already explained that in each election in large constituencies, there are many candidates. So if the polling station is small, then you really can't accommodate all the polling agents in the polling station at the same time. We need to make arrangements. We have not seen or come across any confusion. But if it does happen, then the law doesn't require queuing. This is only queuing is taking turns. It's just an administrative arrangement. The presiding officer can allow the polling agents to certain polling agents to enter and observe. The candidates should be allowed. The candidate has a right to enter, right? I think the candidate and the polling agent is of the same status. The candidate has to observe order in the polling station. If the candidate is in the polling station, then the polling agent is not allowed to enter the polling station. It's a matter of order. It's also not possible to allow all candidates to go into a small polling station. I know that the number is an administrative arrangement and the presiding officer has discretion. And if there is a problem, then when a candidate asks to enter the polling station or the agent asks to enter the polling station, then the presiding officer can exercise his discretion to allay the worries or concerns of the candidate or polling agent. The arrangement at present is to allow queuing or allow the candidates to take turn. Now, can you confirm that if there is really the need, say, to allow the candidate to go into the polling station and you refuse because of, then it may cause a serious problem. I think you have to be flexible, and you shouldn't be so rigid as that you only allow 2 and no more. Well, your understanding is correct. In fact, when we allow the polling agents to enter the polling stations, we want to enhance transparency. This is our objective, but we need to balance the situation with the size of the polling station. In a certain election, now we have a nameless system. If you add all the candidates together, it may be some tens of candidates. If you require by law that candidates are allowed to enter a polling station at any time, then the polling station may not be big enough. We need to address the situation. We want the polling, the polling to be fair and has credibility. In a certain election, there was not enough ballot boxes. Not enough ballot boxes, right? The ballot papers were too thick. The ballot papers were folded up and then put into the ballot boxes. There were not enough ballot boxes as a result. Many agents wanted to enter the polling station to see what was going on. Was there any problem with that? I wasn't present at that time, but in the report, it was said that at certain polling stations there were some abnormalities. To enable transparency, to ensure transparency, you had to let people see what was going on. Say, for example, when there were not enough ballot boxes, you might need to use some objects to press the the ballot papers. Say, for example, use a ruler to press that ballot paper inside the ballot box so as to enable the ballot box to accommodate more ballot papers. You had to enhance transparency. You had to let the candidates or polling agents to see the process. Anything done is to ensure transparency. I just asked, how did you do it to ensure transparency? You were not present. In fact, it was news. But I cannot recall whether people complained that the candidates were unable to enter and watch the situation or the process. Was there any complaint that the candidate or the polling agent was not allowed to enter the polling station and see the process?
Chairman, I didn't remember any complaints like that. No candidates or agents were not allowed into the polling station. Of course, well, a lot of people were concerned, so at a certain time there were a lot of people in the polling station, so we have to be very careful about the order. Yes, I understand the dilemma. Now you are trying to resolve it through administrative means, but I hope that you can do it as fairly as possible. In case problems occur, there will be great issues. Now, because if any problem occurs, many agents would want to go in, and if you at that time say that no, it's not possible, I can only allow 2 agents to go in at the same time, then you have to ask the agents to queue up or take turns to go in, then you will give rise to a lot of problems. Yes, you have expressed your views. Let us now look at Annex E. Ms. Zhong. Yes, for Annex E, they are also about polling and counting agents, and some amendments are made, and consequential amendments would also have to be made, and they are set out in Annex E. It's mainly about Division 5 of Part 5, and this is to amend electronic transactions exclusion order. Now, when we did our clause-by-clause examination last time, we didn't look at Division 5 of Part 5 because the government was amending the requirements concerning prior notice about agents. So I would like to refer members to Annex E. These are the amendments we are talking about. As for Division 5 of Part 5, the purpose of the amendment is like this, because in January 2015, a new platform will be created by the REO. So we would have to remove certain items under the electronic transactions exclusions order, so that the signatures on such e-documents can also be regarded as valid. Now you can see that we are deleting certain provisions in number of regulations, and after deleting these provisions, the documents can be submitted electronically. So which one are we talking about? Now under Annex E, members can see some deletion marks, and these are the relevant proposed amendments in the regulations. For example, on page 3, you can see the shaded areas. Just now we were talking about the appointment notice of agents, and we will be maintaining the status quo. And on the polling day, if such a notice is to be made, then the candidate would have to deliver it to the polling station. So here we do not have any exclusion. But if you submit it 7 days beforehand, you can do it electronically. So you can see the shaded areas, and it's about the arrangements on the polling day, and there are exemptions. Any questions? Page 5 is the same as explained by Ms. Chong. Page 6 and 7. Yes, Chairman, on page 6 is a consequential amendment, because originally we suggested some amendments that's about Division 2 to 5 of Part 5, and we are going to delete them, so we do not have to make this consequential amendment anymore. Okay, any questions concerning Annex E? If not, let us look at Annex F. Ms. Chong? Thank you, Chairman. Annex F is just a minor amendment. We are changing the Chinese characters ding to another ding. This is more in line with other legislations. Okay, now let's move on to Annex G. These are also minor amendments or refinements. Members can refer to page 3. Several provisions about VR appeals, and with regard to postponements concerning inclement weather warning days, several provisions would have to be amended. Now, if inclement weather warning day and working day are mentioned, we think that the definition should be consistent. So now we are making this amendment so as to achieve this goal. Page 4. Yes, Chairman. In the middle of page 4, you can also see another refinement, because originally in this provision we talk about making representations in writing to the revising officer, and originally we say in relation to that ruling. Now we change it to in relation to that appeal, claim or objection. And about postponing the date, we also want to make it clear that the date postponed to is not an inclement weather warning date, and it should be a working day. Page 5, nothing. Page 6, page 7. Page 7 is the same. Page 8, the same. Page 9, the same. Okay, with regard to NXG, do members have any questions? If not, then with regard to members' concern, the government has addressed all of them. And we have completed the scrutiny of the relevant laws. So I would like to remind members that this is our arrangement, right? That the government wants to do it on the 2nd of July, right? At the resumption of second reading, the debate will be conducted on the 2nd of July. And tomorrow, I will be submitting a verbal report to the House Committee on behalf of our Bills Committee. If members are moving CSAs, you have to do it by the 21st of June. The notification for the resumption of second reading should be done by the 16th of June. So these are the proper procedures. On the 2nd of July, the second reading will be resumed. Any other questions? If not, then this Bills Committee has completed its task. If there are any other concerns about the wording or any other things, you can refer them to the legal advisor. If there are no other questions, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.